Hi, on behalf of Beat Latino and ChicagoMusic.org, I'm Catalina Maria Johnson, and I'm talking with Osekre, based in Brooklyn, but actually all the way from Harlem today and soon to be in Chicago at the Festival of the Joyous Rebellion. Hi, Osekre.
Hi.
So I'm fascinated to hear a little bit about your history. So you're from Ghana, and then we'll talk about your music a little bit later, but there's an interesting Midwestern state,
Yeah,
Indiana, in your history too. So tell us a little bit about the Ghana-Indiana connection.
absolutely. So I was privileged to meet um, a Midwestern family in Ghana about 7, 8 years ago. At a time when I was working as an office administrator at the Kokrobite Institute. The Kokrobite Institute is an institute in Ghana that tries to provide the African experience for mostly international students, institutions that visit Ghana. So I met the pigments there who were in Ghana for about 6 months at a time, and we became friends. At the time, I had just graduated from high school, was working with this institution, and ideas about trying to go to college at some point had started springing up in my mind. So we just kept in touch, became friends, kept in touch, um, and at the time I had inquired, what is the most practical way to get to college, and I remember my daddy telling me, he said, he was telling me at the time, he said. Um, well, I guess I had said that I was trying to go to college, and he had said, "What? How do students from Ghana go to college in the States?" Because he wasn't the wealthiest of people, but he said he was willing to kind of help me to figure that out. Um, so I said, "Well, really, all I need to do is to study for my SATs." Because at the time, I remember the SATs cost about, I believe it was about $35 or $45 at the time, but that was my sister's entire monthly salary. And that was probably half of mine. So really my family was probably making about $60 a month at a time.
Wow.
So to put that much to the SATs was a really big deal. So he said, well, that isn't a problem at all. That is something I can help with. So he helped pay for my SATs, and all I had to do was study. And the Pigments also edited some of my college application essays, giving me ideas and suggestions about how to go about my essay. So a year later, when all this had happened, the SATs and college application essays had been done, we we had been in touch. I was on their listserv, they were on mine, and occasionally I'll send poems and updates to all my friends, and they would do the same. And I remember just making that phone call to Indiana, and saying hello, and they were like, "Hey, Osekre, what's going on?" And I said, "Guess what?" And they said, "What's up?" And I said, "Well, I just received admissions to Columbia University in New York. I'm coming to college." And they were like, "Oh my God," And at the time, I didn't have a good sense of the distance and all, so I actually thought Indiana was, really close by New York. So I said, "I'm going to see you soon." But so they were really excited. They helped me figure out what I needed to do to kind of get to New York. And when I got to New York, they said, "Well, you have to come visit home. Our farm is going to be your home away from home." And ever since then, pretty much when I got to New York, got to college, tried to settle in, um, you know, all the tips that I needed about shopping, to get groceries, to asking directions, to even me raising funds through my college years, them connecting me to friends and introducing me to people. The Pigmans had originally lived in Evanston in um, Illinois before, and so they had friends in Chicago that they introduced me to. So when I go to Chicago to play, there are going to be so many friends that I've known from the past few years, and when we get to
Wow.
Indiana, there will be some friends as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you have this connection with Indiana.
Right.
and you were studying college, but at that point it wasn't music, it was something else, and then at some point it turned to music. So
Yes.
tell me about how that happened. How did you make that, turn into music? You were already writing poetry, I know that.
Right.
So that was the arts were already there.
Right. So yeah, I was really passionate about poetry. I was writing. I was actually also writing a column for the Columbia Spectator at the time, and I had a bit of a dilemma because there is a huge spoken word scene in New York, um, but I wanted to figure out a way to do more with my poems, and I had started kind of experimenting with the idea of forming a band. Um, and so I had gotten involved with a couple of projects on campus, but things actually um, took off to a whole different level when I started playing the guitar. And my first time playing the guitar was when I visited a farm in Indiana, and we had a pretty kind of like a semi acoustic guitar lying around the house, which occasionally my little sisters and little brother would probably play, and my dad, Uncle T, would also play as well. And so I saw the guitar and I said, "Oh my God, I'm in a band, and I write most of the songs for the band, and I know that it would make a world of a difference if I could figure out how to play an instrument that is really relevant to the music that we are making." So I started, figuring out how to play chords. My dad, on the farm was teaching me, and I wake up in the morning and I'll start practicing till night, just developing calluses on my fingers and just trying to learn how to play the guitar. So every summer when I visited the farm, I would pick up this guitar, practice chords, and then when I came into the city, I'll forget most of the things because I didn't have anyone else to practice with. And then when I returned the following summer, I'll pick it up again and continue from where I left off, until I actually mastered the guitar well enough to play it. And now I do most of my songwriting on the guitar. That was
Wow.
just huge for me to be able to do.
Now, your influences, I mean, I've heard it described as Afro-punk, and it also
Right.
mixes in Ghanian Jama. Am I pronouncing that?
Yeah.
So tell me a
Yes.
little bit more about those influences and describe, because not everybody, I'm not even sure I know exactly how Jama would
Right.
sound.
Right. So, I guess kind of like the cheerleading songs that we would sing as a crowd whenever we want to watch our school team play another team, or whenever the soccer team was riding on a bus, going across town to play our rivals. The kind of songs that we would sing were called Jama songs. But Jama songs are also the kind of songs that fishermen will sing when they come, return from fishing in the
Oh, wow.
early in the morning, and they are kind of songs that keep the group in rhythm and keep them focused on whatever they are doing at the same
So,
time.
like
Uh,
chants? Are they like,
well, they, they are not exactly like chants, but there's a component which is usually the choruses of the songs. So it's usually kind of like one expression that is being repeated over and over. So that is usually the way the chorus of most of Jama songs work. The other pretty cool thing about Jama is that it follows a very unique beat, which is so that is kind of the beat, the 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. That is really the feel about most Jama songs. And so the sound that I'm working with in the band right now is built primarily on Jama, which also has a really cool relationship with high life music, which is more popular in the West. And interestingly, because I've lived a lot in Brooklyn, that part of Brooklyn that is kind of rubbed off me, which is punk rock, woven together. So we have, African music, Jama, with some elements of high life with punk rock. And because high life has horns in it, and that fusion with punk rock has automatically given it a very ska vibe as well. So we usually describe ourselves as a part high life, part Afrobeat, part punk rock, and part ska band.
And I've heard the name Fela Kuti mentioned in association with your work because of your lyrics, I'm assuming mainly.
Right. Well, the lyrics and the Afrobeat element, because Fela Kuti is seen as the godfather of the Afrobeat movement. And I guess there's also a little bit of the energy we share on stage. that is, that is kind of similar.
Are you a good dancer?
I love to dance.
Okay.
I love to dance. Anyone that comes out to see us live would actually see a lot of dancing on stage.
Wow. And then, and the name of the band, I'm curious about that, the Lucky Bastards.
Yeah, it's a pretty interesting story. So I consider myself very lucky in every way possible. At a time when I was asking questions about going to college in America, now that I know what I know, I think I didn't have a clue what I was talking about. Because I had set out to apply to only Ivy League institutions. I said, all right, I'm going to apply to Harvard, MIT, Yale, Brown, Dartmouth. And I said, well, I'll probably add Bates, just in case I don't get Ivy League lucky, and then Columbia University. And so Columbia was one of the first schools to respond to me. Obviously, I didn't have enough money to be, using the internet cafe to kind of complete my applications and all that. So I focused a bit more on Columbia. But when I got here and I realized how impossible it was to actually, even for, the average American to say, hey, I'm going to go to an Ivy League, college and I'm going to raise the money to go to college. I felt really lucky that people just supported me. People that I didn't, even know before, besides the Pigmans, just contributions that came in from different places when I tried to fundraise for college. And so I've always considered myself a really lucky bastard. And that pretty much is what I decided to name the band. I said, everything about me, my college experience, the relationships that I've had, the people that I've met, has all been one huge fairy tale. And I'm a really lucky person. So I said, I'll call the band that and kind of bring that idea of being lucky along with us.
That's interesting. And so what do you want to share with your music, Osekre? I mean, the sense of luckiness, it sounds like very positive in so many ways.
Currently, I think the band is in a phase where most of the message is really about joy. And also, I guess there is a huge inspirational component to it. Without trying to be cheesy, but just, I guess I think that if you, put your mind to something and you work really hard and, get lucky, you will be able to accomplish that. And I think that is the message right now, even though we also have lyrics that have kind of, I guess, activisty or progressive messages to them. I was interviewed recently and, you were talking about Fela Kuti before, and people were trying to draw parallels. And I was saying that I guess I haven't switched into that heavy, I guess, African activist message yet. And the reason is because when you look at an artist like Ghanian, who came from Somalia, Ghanian had the burden of sharing the struggles of a Somalian refugee in the West. And that is what he did through his music. And Fela Kuti at the time, at his prime, was sharing the struggles of Nigeria and, military dictatorship and, all the cruel things that people were going through. Ghana does have its struggles, but I think that there is also a place for African artists to share what really they are experiencing in the moment. Ghana currently is viewed as the gateway to West Africa and to Africa. Ghana is in a lot of positive places than many African countries. And I think that if I want to be truly honest and consistent, the message that I feel right now, coming from home and experiencing everything that I'm experiencing right now, is a message of gratitude and celebration of life, and of even past struggles, from Ghana and the continent. But I think there's a place for positivity, so that people can also see Africa as a place where you can go and celebrate the really cool things about life, in spite of the fact that maybe you might meet kids that walk barefooted, and kids that live on $30 a month, families that live on $30 a month. But I came out of that and I was able to apply for college, and I'm here and I'm still moving forward, and that is still part of the African story. So that is the message: inspirational and celebration of life, happiness.
Well, and how perfect that you will be here for the Festival of the Joyous Rebellion.
Absolutely.
Can't wait. Thank you so much, Osekre, for spending time with us and sharing your insights, and look forward to seeing you here in Chicago.
Absolutely. I'm so looking forward to this. I hope everyone can come out and celebrate with us.